Blog Talk Radio.
We have three special guests. Meeko, the DJ, who was with us last week. Erica, host of the competing radio show Anonymous Erica, and her co-host, Nat Partlow. So we bid you all welcome to the show. I'd just like to start off, and again, we'll be talking about ghosts, as we did last time, and I want to talk about the first seance described in the Bible. And this involves Saul. It's depicted in the first book of Samuel, chapter 28, verses 3 through 19. Samuel had died, and Saul wanted to consult him about how he should handle the kingdom. That he wanted to talk to the witch of Endor, a medium. However, Saul had banned all mediums, so he found himself in a very touchy predicament. So he disguised himself, then approached the witch of Endor to summon Samuel. He was summoned and gave Saul sound advice for the future. So there you have it, the very first seance described in the good book. Again, you can check that out in the first book of Samuel, chapter 28, verses 3 through 19. Now, my co-host, Benny Guzland, has been involved in a number of exorcisms, and sometimes we think that ghosts possess individuals requiring an exorcism. So take it away, Benny, with your experiences with exorcisms.
Well, my first experience was probably, I would say, maybe about 3 years ago, I would say. I was at church, and I'd studied demonology for years, just pretty much growing up studying demonology and the paranormal and things. And I also was raised in church. And so every now and then I got to see an exorcism and to see these things. And anyway, there is this lady that came in, and she wanted to be delivered from these spirits, you know. And I actually know the lady, and she has had exorcisms done on her before. It seems any time that you would get, holy around her, or say certain words like, God or whatever, or try to invoke good energy, she would always act real funny anyway. So you'd have to watch how she's just a very disturbed woman. But anyway, she come into the church, and she wanted to be delivered. And so what happened, as the other ministers were praying for her, I looked at my cousin and I told him, I said, you know what's going to happen? I said, this is going to be an exorcism. So anyway, these demons began to manifest themselves. Or, this woman began to, her voice began to change, she began to squirm and be real skittish, and so one of the little ladies of the church, she come up and she started not really so much praying deliverance over her, but she got the woman more riled up, and what's crazy is I didn't really get any help from my other ministers, so I come forward. This is my first exorcism. I just studied about it. I knew how to do it, but I had never done it at this point, so I was a little nervous. So I began to pray deliverance over this woman. And then she begins to get very aggressive. So two of the ladies of the church actually set her down on the front pew of the church, and one woman's got one arm, the other lady's got another arm. And I'm praying this deliverance over her, and she's trying to scratch at me. She's very violent, and her strength seems to be, she's got like a major adrenaline rush. So I get a bottle of olive oil. We use olive oil at our church. We don't use water. I grabbed a bottle of oil, and I put it on her head, and it was almost as if I was burning her. Not that it was burning her, but it had a reaction. So she got so violent that it scared everybody in the church. There's people walking outside of the church because they didn't want to be around this, and they actually told me to stop. They said, "That's enough, Benny," and they let the lady go, and she left. It actually hurt her feelings, really. So anyway, several months had passed, and I get a phone call, and this lady wants me to come to her house. Now, I'd done several exorcisms on her before. This lady is full of them. They have so much power over this woman. She's at the point now that she said she loves it. She loves having these demons because she loves the power that they give her. But anyway, I go up to her house, and my cousin's there with me. A lot of times when I do an exorcism, I like to have him there because he's the muscle. I'm just a little guy. And anyway, I walk into the house, and I've got this oil, and I go straight into the exorcism, praying the deliverance over her and everything. And at this point, she collapses to the floor, and her throat, like the fat part under your chin, it swells up like a bullfrog. It swells up like a balloon. And I don't know if it's hurting her or what, but she seemed to be in pain, And then she allowed this, like the balloon thing, to go down in her throat. And at that point, I seen that she allowed this energy to reside. I don't know if it was hurting her. I don't know what was going on, but she allowed it to go back down. Anyway, we would pray over her. She would get real aggressive, but then she would tire out. And then there was one point I was like quoting whatever I could from the Bible, Scripture. I said, "Do you know Paul?" And she looked at me and said, "I walked with Paul." And I don't know what that meant, but unless there was an instance in the Bible where there was a spirit, a soothsaying spirit, that actually followed Paul in the Bible. So I'm guessing maybe I was dealing with the same spirit that followed Paul that was in this woman, because this woman, she was a soothsayer. Whatever was in her, she could not so much tell the future, but she knew events that would happen around her, almost sort of like she had psychic ability or something. But anyway, we prayed for her, and she eventually just fell asleep. Still to this day, this woman is disturbed. I could go up to her right now with oil, touch her head, and say, "Come out," or whatever, and it would be a seance, or not a seance, but a exorcism right there on the spot. You have to watch. You don't go up to this woman and begin to pray for her, because it's almost instant, that this happens to this woman. This girl at our church one time needed to be delivered, and I went up to pray for her, and I started praying for her. Normally, every exorcism I do, always there's a gook, like some kind of gunk that comes out of the mouth, and I guess it's just the mucus from the stomach. But anyway, most of the time it's green, but this time when I did an exorcism on this girl at the church, it was like a white gunk that come out instead of green. Most of the time the exorcisms last a few minutes, but with this other woman, it's hard. I mean, it lasts for hours, and it got to the point one night we was doing one. These stories are really long, so that's why I'm cutting them a little bit short. But anyway, one night we was doing exorcism up there, and it got so bad that we actually had to call the police. And we all vowed to never go back up there again because it was just too dangerous, Anyway, yeah, back to you, Doctor.
Well, why did you have to call the police? Was she becoming violent?
Yeah, she was cutting herself. She had a knife. I walked in the house, and it was the last time I had done an exorcism on this woman. I walked in, and she had a knife, and she had been cutting herself. There was blood all over the floor. She threatened to gouge my eyeballs out with a fork. One of the other ladies from our church was there, and she was actually my muscle that time, because this woman from the church actually wrestled her down on the couch while I was doing the exorcism, because this woman, was grabbing anything she could get a hold of to fight. It just got so brutal, so violent that we had to call the police, because we didn't want her hurting us, and we didn't want her, to hurt herself. She'd already been cutting on her wrist and everything, so it just got to the point that we, couldn't have her die right there.
So you need a bodyguard when you perform these exorcisms, just in case these individuals become violent.
Yeah. Normally that's what I don't think my cousin was there that night. Normally he's my muscle. But this time it was another girl from the church, which she's a little bigger than me. But anyway, she was my muscle that night. And, that one got violent. And that night, I believe, is when she made the statement that she enjoyed how they made her feel.
Well, then why would she grant you permission to perform an exorcism if she loves that power that they accord her?
I believe it's almost like a split personality kind of thing. I believe when the spirits are not raised, like if she's in her normal state of mind, I believe that's when she wants it. But then when she gets to that point of I want delivered, you get those spirits in there, she gets this adrenaline rush, and she just feels powerful. It's almost like she's Incredible Hulk or something. David Banner in Incredible Hulk.
Yes.
He doesn't want to be the Hulk, but when he's the Hulk, he loves it.
Right. Would you have you had a chance to videotape any of these exorcisms? They certainly would be great to have on tape.
I've not videotaped any. The last time I was actually going to, but I didn't want people to be thinking, oh, look at Benny, he's going to try to put on a show and put it on the Internet, make a circus out of this woman. That's kind of how I felt, because I actually
Well, you could ask permission. I'd love to see one of those. I've never seen a real exorcism, only in the movies.
Yeah, they're pretty fascinating. There's been a few times I have. First time I did one, it was pretty scary, but it wasn't too bad, But I would say the scariest one was probably when I seen her cutting herself, and then she was telling secrets. She was telling secrets on everybody, like everybody was there. There was several women from the church at her house, and she was telling secrets on everybody. So that's why I think she had
the secret information imparted to her by the possessing spirit?
I'm guessing that's what it was, yeah. It got, it was embarrassing people. I mean, things were coming out of the closet that you never would have imagined on people, It wasn't that she could tell the future, it's just she knew secrets, Yeah, like one, she began to tell stuff on me. She actually went in to tell stuff on me that I didn't really even understand, and going into, like, family matters and things like that. I'm glad that didn't last long, because it was starting to, the whole place was getting hot in there. Everybody, everything was being told, and, it was just, it was all, some of the information that she was telling, you wouldn't want people to hear, you know what I mean? It got that bad.
Well, I've never heard that about an exorcism before, that the subject actually revealing secrets that they might have received from the spirits possessing them. That's very intriguing.
Yeah, this energy or what, these creatures inside of her, where she's getting this power from. That's why I believe she said, I walked with Paul. I believe, and because if you look over, I can't remember where it is, but there was a soothsaying spirit following Paul.
You don't know which book it would be in? What chapter? You don't have a biblical reference?
It may be in Timothy, it might be even. It's something that had where Paul wrote, one of the books that he's written. But the soothsaying spirit of this woman, she had that soothsaying spirit, so she could tell, not the future, but she could tell about things, what was in the present. She could look at you and tell you what your name is and all this stuff. And she would follow Paul, and she would make fun of him. And then finally, after a few days, Paul looked at her and rebuked the spirit out of the soothsaying spirit out of that woman. Technical terms called a python spirit. Anyway, the spirit came out of her, and then Paul and Silas. That's actually how they got in prison, was because he cast that demon out of that girl, and so they couldn't make money anymore. So they had Paul and Silas put into prison because of that. So being based on that, and when she said, I walked with Paul, I believe that's why she was able to do what she did.
Well, it's very fascinating. I want to check it out. Let's get our guests involved. Let's start with the lady. Erica, do you have anything to say on this?
Well, hi. Nice to meet you. I just wanted to say for sure. And actually, it was interesting. I kind of went through an experience myself a little bit back in the day, and I can kind of understand what she's saying about what you said about the woman having the adrenaline rush, because I dabbled in a little bit of the occult, and I can kind of relate to when the spirits, the evil spirits, I'm not sure what the entity. When they're on cue, they give you that rush a little bit. So that was interesting. And I was going to ask you, Benny, did you actually physically see the lump that woman